Hello, beautiful people, and welcome back to the Women and Theater Podcast. We're your hosts, Haley Goldenberg
and Amy Andrews. Grab a cozy beverage and join us as we talk to women and gender-expansive folks about their experiences at the intersection of womanhood and theater.
On the pod, we cultivate open conversations across identities and professional roles.
We look for opportunities to support one another in growing our careers.
And we pool our collective wisdom to build the equitable theatrical spaces of the future. Amy, I'm so excited to see you. How are you?
Hey, I'm so excited to see you. I'm doing really well today. How are you?
Good. It's snowing outside in Canada, and that's a beautiful thing.
It's magical. Snow is so magical.
It is. Yeah, totally. Let's get into it, Amy. Let's get started with our roses and thorns. Do you want to take it to get us started?
Yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, so my rose for this week is letting go of things that are no longer serving me. There are some things that I am, like commitments that I'm removing from my life right now that I'm feeling so good about. It's just like a weight lifting off of my shoulders, and I'm so excited to clear that space for what's coming next, which is just, it's exciting. Transitions, new beginnings, all good. My thorn right now it's the gray skies. It's like, as much as snow is magical and I do love it, like the winter doldrums do get me down sometimes, and I do what I can to take care of myself within that. And also some days there are gray skies and it's hard to get out of bed, and that's true too. So that's me. How are you doing today, Haley? What are your rose and thorn?
My rose is that I feel like I'm really embracing. I think I said on a podcast recently this idea of rest is productive.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm embracing that and leaning in. I just finished a book that I was really excited about reading. I am leaning into playing a video game that is really fun for me. I never play video games unless I'm on holiday, so it like really signifies the holidays for me. So yeah, I'm just embracing the need for rest that I really do have, which is a rose, and getting to spend time with family and friends who I don't get to see all the time. So that's my rose. My thorn is the state of the world.
Oh, yeah.
To be honest, like, it's just really scary right now. Things are really uncertain, and part of me feels really excited to like get to work and be a part of making things better. And part of me is totally paralyzed in fear and uncertainty and daunted by the size of this unknown beast that's to come.
I think that dichotomy is true for a lot of us right now. And I want to say to listeners, if you're feeling the same way, like, just blanket permission. It's okay to be where you are. Like, it's okay to be in a space where you are working really hard to fight for equity, to fight for people's rights. And it's also okay to feel burnt out, or to need a break, or to feel like it's all too much and you just need to step back for a second. Like, it's all part of the work. Like Haley said, rest is productive. And yeah, it's all part of the work.
Yeah, thank you for that. So that's where I'm at. I'm trying to hold these two things at one time, but I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah, we're going to talk with Maria.
Maria and I had the pleasure of working together on Spiral Bound at Joe's Pub, which is a beautiful song cycle by Miranda Ferris Jones, just about a year ago now, directed by the brilliant Emily Maltby, with wonderful people like Laura Benanti and Ivana Blazada and Lorna Courtney and all these amazing, brilliant women and non-binary folks. And I just think Maria is such a brilliant talent. I think that they're really one of the big up-and-comers to watch, and I'm so excited for them being in Old Friends coming up. Amy and I also, I don't know if you want to talk about this, Amy, but we just got to see Maria star in Medusa at NAMT this year, so that was also really cool.
We did, yeah, and it was such a performance. At the end of the show, Haley and I just were like, we were blown away. I mean, the piece was really beautiful and interesting, and Maria just like crushed it. Like, what a compelling performance that spoke so much to womanhood and the complexities within that. I'm really pleased that we're going to be speaking with her today. I'm really excited to learn more about Maria and their journey and all the cool stuff that they're up to. So shall we get started?
Let's get into it. For Women's History Month, we've teamed up with Expand a Canon to bring you a series of playwrights you should know about.
This week's playwright you should know about is Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz. Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz was born in Mexico to a Spanish father and Mexican mother. She later sequestered herself in a convent, the only way for a woman to pursue her thirst for knowledge and gain instruction in the arts. During that time, she used her works to comment on the socio-political economic landscape of Mexico in the 17th century and condemn the sexism of the church. If you wish Twelfth Night's love triangle with a love octagon, check out her play Los Empeños de una Casa, House of Desires, written in 1683. Learn more about the play and Sor Juana Inés de la Cruz on This is a Classic, a podcast by Expand the Canon.
Today we're talking to Maria Wirries. Maria is a performer, composer, lyricist, and self-proclaimed swamp witch. Select credits include Old Friends, Broadway, Dear Evan Hansen, Broadway and First National Tour, Kinky Boots Off-Broadway Revival, and Penelope or How the Odyssey Was Really Written Off-Broadway. She is currently in the BMI Layman Angle Musical Theater Workshop and has developed her own original musicals at the Goodspeed Opera House, the Paramount Theater, and Penn State University. Hello, beautiful people. Maria, welcome to Women in Theater.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Before we get started, can you share your pronouns and tell us a little bit about what you do in theater?
Absolutely. So I'm Maria. My pronouns are she, they. And I'm an actor and composer and lyricist in theater. I guess, like mostly been an actor for the majority of my career, but more recently have been pivoting in different ways and wanting to get on the other side of the table. So that's been my journey recently.
So exciting. So in your bio, Maria, you say that you're a self-proclaimed swamp witch. So before we dive further, Amy and I are so obsessed with this. We have to know. Just tell us what it is to be a swamp witch.
So I grew up in like the swampy backwoods of Florida, and I was always just like surrounded by really badass women in my family who were very aware of like nature and the plants around us and would take me on these walks and teach me about the plants and, their medicinal properties and all these different things. And they would not describe themselves as witches, but I always thought that they had a very witchy vibe. And so as I got older, I wanted to do my own research and learn about it. So during the pandemic, I had time and I read a lot and sort of like collected myself an altar space. And I used it for manifestation and thinking about the things that I want, taking time for myself. My practice has really been kind of owning my own space and creating my own destiny as opposed to constantly feeling like I'm relying on like hoping and wishing and seeing what happens. And I feel like it led me to just be more intentional in general in life and just take more time for myself. So it's all kind of set in a swampy vibe just because that's what I grew up with and around. Like I had like turtle feet and bones and things on my altar, and it's all very like from Florida. So yeah, I think that sums it up.
Ah, Swamp Witch, yes. Maria, can you tell us something, anything that is inspiring you right now in your life?
The people in my life have been inspiring me so much. I think it all goes along with this idea of intentionality that over the last few years, I've been really specific about the people and the relationships that I've been cultivating. And because of that, the people that surround me are just like the most exciting people to me. They are doing their own projects in varying fields, and their passion for what they do ignites me. I have a conversation with someone and they're like, yeah, I'm working on this thing. It's got me really excited. And I'm like, I want to be working on a thing that has me excited. So I'd say it's like, it's mainly humans that are inspiring me right now.
That's so beautiful, Maria. I love that. So before we get into the depths of the swamp in this interview, we would like to do a fun little flash round of questions with you. This might be related to the swamp. It might not be, but if you were an animal, what would you be?
I would be, I feel like some sort of like jungle cat.
Ooh.
Powerful, but like quiet. I'm not saying not quiet. I feel like they're kind of like, I don't know, there's like a silent, grounded power. That's what I would want to be.
Love it.
Yeah.
What is your weirdest hobby?
Hobby. Oh God. I can talk about an old hobby that I used to have that I don't really keep up anymore, but I used to be in a Scottish pipe and drum band.
Ooh,
and I was a tenor drummer. So I played these drums where you had them like strung through your fingers, like these laces, and you would spin them and then like keep time while you were going. And I thought it was the most fun thing. I'd like wear a full kilt outfit and like do these concerts. It was a blast. So if there's a pipe band looking for a tenor drummer, I'd pick it up again.
You know where to find Maria, okay? Do you have a quote or a mantra that's speaking to you right now?
My friends and I make these yearly collages of like kind of projecting what we want to do for the year and what we want to come to us. And this year, the one that I have in the center is I can, I will. And that I sort of I've decided is like something that I'm really going to think about this year. 2 years ago, and I kept it because 2 years in a row because it was really beating me, was ready, willing, and able. But what do you bring to the table? And so that was the one that I was really rocking with for a while. That right now it's I can, I will.
Maria, what's your favorite musical?
My favorite musical is Care. That's an easy one for me. I did it when I was in college, and I was so buttoned up as a young person. I was so focused. I was like, I have to do everything right. And then this musical came along, and I was actually considering leaving musical theater. I had been in the program for 2 years, and I wish I could say it was for a better reason, but it was absolutely for a boy at the time. And I was convincing myself that it wasn't. I was in some Delulu world where I was going to like leave my musical theater program that I'd worked so hard to get into and like go move to Texas with this man. Terrible ideas. Glad I didn't do it. But the head of my program at the time was like, hey, we have a musical coming up. I really think you should audition. Like, stick it out, see what you think. And it actually happened to be one of my mom's favorite musicals. Like, she showed me this movie for years, and I loved the music, and I was like, okay, I'll stick in it. And I actually literally got a back tattoo. I don't know if you can see it, but it's Our Eyes Are Open, and it's a line from the show. I love it so much. It like completely changed my life and refocused me to be able to see that like my activism and the things that I cared about could be inside of musical theater. And so yeah, so I stuck with it.
So glad that you did. Maria, what's your song of the moment?
So I totally missed Call Me by Your Name train. I don't know like how I never saw this movie. Everybody would always be like, Maria, I can't believe you of all people haven't seen that movie. And I was like, what did that mean? But anyway, there's a song, a Sufjan Stevens song, Mystery of Love, and I cannot stop listening to it.
Fabulous. Well, thanks for playing along with our flash round. Now we can get into the real stuff. So, how did you come to theater in the first place and your creative work, Maria?
Oh man, I always knew that I wanted to be a singer, like from really, really young, probably 3 or 4. It was the first time I'd ever felt like people really listened to me. I was the super, super youngest in the family. There was a lot going on, not a lot of time to fixate and focus. And a teacher had asked us to bring in a special skill or something into class. And I brought this little karaoke machine and sang, I've been working on the railroad. And everybody in class was like, oh my gosh, Maria sings. Oh, Maria's not just that weird girl who talks to bugs on the playground. And I was like, that's right. Look out, world. And I felt this when I was like, oh my gosh, this is my way to relate to people because I just really did not as a kid. I feel like I related to adults more, but people my own age, I was kind of like, again, that weird girl who talks to bugs. And so it excited me. And I started to just sing anywhere I could. I was doing like shows at the county fair and at prize fights and rodeos and like literally anywhere there's a spot to sing. I was like working my way in there.
You're like, where can I get on the stage? That's where I'm supposed to go. Yeah.
Yes. And I had such hyper confidence as a kid. Like I would just walk up to people and be like, I have like an hour long set ready if you need.
Honestly, love that audacity from you. Yeah.
Oh my
So good.
gosh,
Trying
yes.
to get her back, try to buy her a little bit more
Totally.
these days. So I started working as just like a performer. I'd make like $100 doing these random things. And then I got involved in theater because there was this summer camp that was at a community theater. And it was technically, I think, kids 12 through 18, and I was 11, but I was going to turn 12 that summer. I begged and begged, and we asked them, and they were like, okay, we'll let you in as an 11-year-old. And our show was High School Musical 2. And I was like, this is the best thing that's ever happened. It's a group of people, it's a community. Because I'm like an individual performer. I was not building community in any particular way. I was just focused on my own thing. So I would go back each year and get the opportunity to do these shows, but it was really, I'm looking forward to see the people. So I didn't initially consider pursuing theater, but when I was going to college, people were like, getting a theater degree allows you to have dance, singing, and acting. So I was like, okay, I'll go to school for musical theater, but I'll be able to keep singing and doing whatever. And then, you know, you get bit by the bug and I've just been in it. It just happened to me, and I am accepting it.
Fantastic. So, Maria, tell us about what you're working on creatively at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm in the BMI writers class. I'm in my second year right now. I've been writing musicals for about 4 years now. So I have a couple musicals that are in development, and I've submitted to some things this year. And so I'm just kind of keeping my fingers crossed and hoping for the best. But in
Yeah, in that
general,
submission like life, yes.
it's that time of year. I'm so unorganized when it comes to that type of thing. So I'm amazed that I've gotten any of it done. I've been congratulating myself all the way along.
As you should. Celebrate those wins.
Yeah, every
The little
submission that you hit
thing.
submit on, it's such a win.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I've been in that process over the last couple of months. That's been exciting. It's been nice to revisit a couple of the shows that I haven't been focused on as much with my writing partner, Christian Thompson, who's also an actor and Penn State alum. And then I'm preparing for this show that we're starting rehearsals for next month. It's called Old Friends, and it's a Sondheim review that started at the concert, and then they did a run on the West End. And now they're bringing it here to Broadway and also a little run in LA. And I could not be more thrilled. I'm just like listening to nothing but Sondheim and getting back into that musical world and reading books about him and listening to interviews, and it's been nice. I love to like nerd out about things, so this has been a good one.
If you haven't read the Meryl Seacrest biography about Sondheim, I would highly recommend that
haven't.
one. It's a good one. Yeah, just
I'm
as a
writing it
side
down.
note for any Sondheim nerds out there. Yeah, so Maria, like you mentioned, you're a multi-hyphenate, you do so many different things. So do you have a creative mission that kind of encompasses all of the different things that you do?
What I keep finding drives me is creating rooms and stories and spaces that can encapsulate what I feel like is a truth, is like real stories of diverse people. A lot of times when I was auditioning for theater or being surrounded by theater growing up, I felt really uncomfortable because I never felt like I really existed in those spaces. I was seeing stories that were kind of like broad brushstrokes of different intersectional pieces of my identity, but none of them really felt like me or how I would go around in the world, or even many of the people that I know who are those group of people would act and be. And so it was this constant battle to find myself in these pieces or to find myself in these audition rooms. And so I've been excited by new writers and people that I've gotten to work with who are trying to also create these spaces. But I kept finding myself being like, I want more. And so that's really what pushed me to become a writer, because as an actor, I felt like there's just not enough time and space a lot of times as an actor to make those changes in a room. The decisions have already been made. There's like $1 million on the line, and nobody has time to listen to the actor who's like, hey, maybe we could like change this song. They're like, we're too far down the pipe, which I get. When you're in that type of a process, it feels like you're tumbling down a hill. So I just always felt powerless in those spaces. And being able to be a writer, it's empowered me as also an actor to speak more in spaces and to feel like I know what it's like to navigate those rooms. I think when I first started doing it, like when I was first on the other side of the table, I'm ill. Literally sitting there like, I should not be deciding these things. What in the world? I felt like the weight, it was so intense. And then I also started to realize how hard it is to make those judgment calls. Like, it was really easy on the other side to be like, well, why don't you just do this and why don't you do that? And then it was like, okay, how do I do that? How am I going to make things better when it's so hard to do? It's easy when you're not in the hot seat to have those ideas, but it's like, oh my gosh, all of these things I thought I knew or I thought I wanted to bring into this space, I don't know inside of the structure of the system kind of how to do that. And so it's nice when you're a part of something where people from production, from creative team, everybody is kind of on the same page and creating their own structure. But anyway, to answer your question, my mission has been to try to create equitable spaces and to feel like the stories that I'm telling are actually real.
Amazing. So talk about womanhood. Maria, I'd love to hear about how womanhood fits into your identity and how it has impacted your theatrical work, if at all.
That's such a great question. So growing up, I didn't really have an attachment to gender specifically. And bless my mom, who is 89 right now. She got me when she was 62, is like a white Southern woman who like could very easily have, shoved pink down my throat or whatever. Just kind of like let me do whatever I wanted. And what I wanted as a kid was to play with dinosaurs and have like light up speakers from the boy section. And I never really felt attached to it. As I got older, that never changed. But then I would have conversations with people and they'd be like, oh, I feel so aligned with everything in this box. And I'd be like, oh, do most people feel that way? And it felt like kind of startling the same way as I like discovered being bisexual. I was like, oh my God, like not everybody just like likes everyone. I feel like in some ways I was sort of sheltered from a lot of the insistent upon behaving one way or another. In other ways, I definitely was, because you can't avoid it 100% the minute you step out your door. You're going to be, treated in different ways. But I think my attachment to womanhood is kind of, I guess, the similarities in what we go through as a gender expression, the things that happen to us that bond us in some way. And I think that in a lot of ways, identity is like that. It's like the shared experiences create identity in some sort of way. And I mean, I feel like I move and flow. It's incredibly fluid. And so sometimes I'm feeling super femme and I'm like, I want to put on like the fluffiest dress and walk around and be a total princess and live that truth. And then other times I'm like, I want to be in woman ting and I want to like have a spear and take people out. I feel like it encapsulates so much. It's almost hard to talk about, like when you really
Yeah.
think about it.
It's a really like big tricky thing to define. Yeah,
Yeah,
which is kind of
Yeah.
why
it
we like to
is.
just like to kind of get into it from all of the different intersecting identities that you're coming from, like how do those things affect your relationship to womanhood? And yeah, it's fascinating.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. And I think because I didn't grow up necessarily in the Black community, and I think that there is a dynamic of womanhood within the Black community that I feel from my friends, and like the idea of being mixed. I think I'm mixed in all the ways one can be. I say that all the time. Like I'm mixed ethnicity, I am like mixed orientation, I am mixed gender. Like, and I feel like I sort of like float ambiguously all the time, which is very freeing and sometimes also isolating in certain ways. I guess in relation to theater, growing up like as a woman in theater, it was very like you're in your character shoes, knee-length dress, like, it
Rehearsal skirt. Yeah.
was
That's
really specific. It was so like, we're like highlighting our boobs so that like they look bigger. Like, I don't know, it was just such a specific time. And it's been interesting, even within what is not the longest lifetime, mine being 27 years, that there's been so much change from what I remember doing when I was first starting in theater to where we are now. It feels like an acceleration
yeah.
in an exciting way. And also, obviously, we have so far to go. But I related to theater as how I was being treated by other people as a woman. So it was sort of like, you're going to expect that people are going to be like touchy, or you're going to have that like old man producer who like lingers too long and says like inappropriate things. And there was an expectation of that. And also like sort of your place and how you could speak about things and how people were going to interact with you. So I feel like it wasn't necessarily a positive to me relating like womanhood to theater. And I always felt like I got around that by being one of the guys. Like I've always been very throwy and like loved to sort of like hang with that side of things. And so yeah, I think is an interesting question, like how it relates to theater being sort of like stuck in these gender roles that didn't exist for so long.
Well, and especially in musical theater, it's so binary in so many ways. And of course, it's like changing now. And I think in the work that you're doing and so many other like young up and coming writers, I know there's more flexibility there, but it was so much like, okay, men over here, women over here, and you're gonna wear the skirts and they're gonna wear just what we were already talking about. Like, it's just, I feel like so many of us who grew up in that theater space, it's like so oddly gendered, and especially in musicals, oddly gendered. Yeah.
Yeah, and the canon lags
Yeah.
behind too. Like it takes so long to write and
Yes.
develop a show that like the shows that are coming out now were probably started being written 10, 15 years ago and the world was really different 10 or 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, it really was. It's actually insane how different.
Yeah.
And I think what's frustrating and of course scary about right now is just feeling that sort of teetering on the edge of what progress we've made, and that there are people that are so threatened by that progress that they're like desperately trying to throw it so far back in
Yeah.
response. I think that that's what's so terrifying to me. That is like I feel like we did make such progress, and then all of a sudden we're not. We've sort of halted and we're waiting to see what's coming next.
Totally. Actually, I
Yeah.
was just going to say, Maria, before you got on the podcast, we did like our little pre interview segment. And one of the things I was talking about was just like how terrified I am staring down the barrel of 2025. And like, yeah, just how that affects theater too is something I've been thinking about. Like, you know, the same people that are pushing for quote unquote free speech are like looking to censor us so deeply, and like what that means for our community. It's terrifying.
It is. I think something that worries me, I think, the most in theater is just because we're not subsidized. A lot of the people who we are navigating finance with are people who are not on our team a lot of the time, or who think they are, but can't possibly really be because they don't even live in the same
In the same
reality as us.
world. Right, exactly.
Right, like someone who's fighting to like, you know, pay rent and put food on the table is not in the same position.
Yeah. And I feel like we're so close to each other in a way that maybe other people in different jobs aren't. We're dealing with people who can finance a Broadway show. And so that's a really specific grouping of people. And then we're like oddly blue collar workers in like so many ways, like with the amount of money that we make. And so it just feels like the wealth disparity there is so intense. And so then when you're trying to create art with people and you're trying to tell stories that feel authentic, and you're dealing with people who like don't even know anybody who you are trying to represent as it shows, it does feel like how do you pitch these things to people who are afraid to rock the boat and lose investments, and it becomes about the money and all of those types of things at a commercial level. And that's what always disappoints me a lot of the times when I enter into commercial spaces. I find myself feeling with all of this resource, what we could do and what we're not doing. And it feels so obvious in those spaces. And then when I step into other spaces where I do feel more like artistically driven and like, wow, we're really saying something, and just like where that resource lacks and hold things back and make things take longer. So I think that scares me when in my mind we share a city with people who are seemingly on the same page, but that's because those are the people that I have access to and spend time with. And the fact that the people who make some of the bigger decisions in our careers and in our artistic footprint, unfortunately, might not be. So it's scary.
Absolutely. Well, you said this beautiful thing about like the what could be. And so I want to dig a little bit into the what could be of this whole conversation. So if you could make one change to the theater industry, like wave your swamp witch magic wand and make the change right now, like what would it be?
If it could only be one thing to make the most impact that I could think of, would just be to be able to somehow elevate the most diverse group of people to the highest position. It's slowly happening. I went to the Black Theater United Gala again this year, and what just truly excited me to the point of tears, I was just sitting there sobbing, was seeing these people who have been icons of mine for a very long time finally get to a place where they feel like they can enact change in more serious ways by being producers of shows. It it really is always a trickle down effect every single time. I've been in companies where I'm like, oh my gosh, the company manager is a person of color and they're queer and it's gonna be awesome. And then I get into conversations with them where they're like, I can't do anything because it's not me who's making the final call. There's so many things I want to change, but I'd been placed here because it's advantageous for a company to have someone who looks like me and who identifies like me in this spot. But the reality of it is, like, I can plan you a pizza party. It's stuff like that that just makes
Right.
you go, like, what? Like,
Yeah.
we're not high enough yet to make the decisions that we really want to make and to make the call. It's just such a disservice because every time we have a show that really pushes ground, like really says something, it is successful. It
Yes.
is. And I
Totally.
don't know why it's so hard and so scary to believe when the statistics are there, that these shows are successful. That is what people want to see.
I mean, I think the scarcity mindset runs so deep, and I think that kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
like the fear of change, like you're saying, it's totally misplaced because every time we make something that's new, like people want it. Like the demand is there
So
for
I mean,
that.
it would definitely be lifting those people, lifting us to a place where the decisions can be in our hands as opposed to in the hands of people who are honestly not even artists themselves a lot of the time. I think that often frustrates me when I'm like, have you ever tried to write a song?
Yeah.
It's really easy for you to say, I don't know, cut it and find something else if I don't like it. And you're like, oh, okay. How about you go away and write
Yeah,
this
you
new
go
thing?
try.
Right.
Figure it
No, I
out,
know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those conversations are maddening. I won't get too specific about this, but I did have a meeting with someone recently where the feedback was just like saying things that were completely contradictory to each other and just making a wild gesture about what the problem was. And I was like, I think you're wrong about that. Like, you know what I mean? I thought about like a younger version of myself. If I was as impressionable or like insecure as I maybe once was, I would have taken that at face value. And now I'm looking at it and I'm like, hell no. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, a little tangent there, but anyway, I
Brilliant,
love
yeah.
that change to the theater industry. Do you have others? If you had a top 3, like what are some others that you want to see?
I'm going to use a really weird analogy here because I just watched Pirates of the Caribbean again. I would instate parlay into musical theater. So, like, if stuff is going down, you can just be like, parlay, and I'm going to sit down and have a conversation with, like, people who protect me and the people on the creative team. Because so often I'm sitting in the back and everybody is going off about something. They're like, I can't believe so and so said this. I can't believe this has happened again. And I'm like, why don't we have a conversation about it? And they're like, nope, I'm not bidding into this. I don't want to actually do something about it because it's so terrifying, the thought of like confronting some of these like giant directors and music directors and people that are very intimidating. And I would love there to be some way we can call, and it's just like anything that happens and is said in this space, like, has to be held sacred somehow. And you can't use the guest speak, happy retribution. It can't be anything like that. I would have that because I think often it feels like going to company management in some way is like still a part of the company because it is.
Yeah, it's like HR. This is to support our employees, but actually it's just to support the interests of the company
Right.
itself.
Like, who are
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
protecting? Yeah.
Yeah, if there was an outside source that could always be brought in. I know we have equity, and equity is complicated in different ways. They've been helpful in a couple of cases that I've dealt with. I'm grateful for the times that they have stepped in and like, and I feel like it's always one of those things where everyone's like, don't call equity, like they're gonna come in and it's gonna be this
Well,
whole
that's the
thing.
thing. It's so stigmatized. Yeah.
Yeah, and then every time you do it, they 100% are like, okay, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. Get out of here. Help you with that. Like it's so like obviously that's their job, but calling equity feels like literally having like the nuclear codes. Like it for some reason feels so
Right.
like it's been stigmatized, and so I think being able to empower people to reach out to the outside sources that protect us, actually being able to maybe have classes that teach people how to understand their contract. There's so many things that
That's a
get
great idea. Yeah.
messed up in contracts that one just wouldn't know. We literally just sign them at the beginning of a thing and go like, hope this isn't gonna ruin my life. So being able to be more educated about what it is we're doing all the time, I think would be the ones I'd say.
I was just going to give a big shout out to communication, particularly within communities and creating communities that are safe spaces for communication. And also shout out to safe words, because that's really what parlay is in that context. It's a thing that is undervalued in our society, but it's amazing the problem solving that can happen within communities when we all feel safe to express ourselves in a particular environment. Yeah.
So true. The idea of safe space is so much deeper than I think people really actually understand. Like, you can say this is a safe space. I don't trust you. Like, I've been around long enough to know I don't trust that. So it's really proving that all the time, and the action of safe space of like, you've said this thing, I'm going to take action, I'm gonna keep you safe while doing it. So yeah, it's really, I think, the only way we can create authentic and great art. The worst art I've ever created was when I was in spaces that I felt awful. Like, unsafe spaces, it's impossible to do your job.
Yeah, and I think there's this narrative that like taking the time to create those spaces is going to be inefficient, or that supporting people is going to harm the like sanctity of the art. And in every experience I've ever had, it's always the opposite. When the space is truly safe, everything moves faster, it's more efficient, the art is better. So I just want to like call BS on that narrative right here, right now, in this moment, and say that yes, it does make things better and faster and more efficient.
It does. It's sort of the idea that, my therapist talks about. When you let things build up, then the blow up is going to be so much more dramatic and intense and take so much longer to resolve, instead of in the moment being like, this doesn't work for me. How can we make this better? And then
Yeah.
it most likely will get resolved then and there. But when stuff is just simmering for long periods of time, it like blows up in all of these different places that it might never have before. And so that is what stalls processes. That's what
Yeah.
makes things uncomfortable. People always feel like theater is such a brave thing to do. And I think in so many ways it is, to just put yourself in a room of people and like come up with something is like so scary. It's something that a lot of people don't do ever in their lives. And I've been trying to be better about bringing a sense of more play into my work again, because I think when you get so product focused, I get to the point where like I won't even show anybody until I think it's perfect. And then you come in with a sense of defensiveness already. But being able to actually find true collaboration is so wildly important for what we do. And we get so focused on like, what is my best? What is my best? And not realizing like how much better things are when you are able to truly collaborate with many different minds. That's been something I'm really wanting to bring into 2025. I feel like I got the good first steps in 2024, and that's going to be what I focus on for the next year. It's just true collaboration and creating spaces where people feel like they really can share and express.
I love
Yeah.
that.
You can and you will.
That's right. Yes.
Maria, I'd love to hear about what are you most proud of in your life and in your work right now?
Oh man, what am I most proud of? This last year I did a reading at 54 Below. It was kind of like a more of a musical presentation of all of the songs of this show that I wrote. It's called Bloody Mary. This show was like the mountain of mountains to climb for me. I started writing it as a experiment because I've always been really insecure about book writing or just writing words in general. I'm dyslexic. I grew up not knowing it and learned way late, like post high school, that I was. And so I've always been very hard on myself, feeling like I'm not smart enough to be involved with language, because it's always been kind of hard for me to grasp the technical elements of language. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to start writing this musical. I'm going to write book, music, lyric, see what happens. My writing partner was out of town on tour with Wicked. I was like, I'm just going to challenge myself. And I would start it and I would be like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I'd be like, Carol, I'd laugh. And I just kept like digging at it for a whole year. And I wrote this whole thing. And I was like, I feel really proud of this. Like, I think I've cracked something inside of myself. It was a total passion project. It's very swabby. It's very backwoods. it was an opportunity for me and one of my really close friends. I wrote this part in it for her to be like, we're these two like mixed Black girls who come from this swampy, weird Florida land, and we listen to country music and we love rock and we love these things that we don't get to do very often in theater. And I want to write a piece where we can do that and we can be in our blue jeans and cowboy hats and like that. It's not about that. We just are, you know? And so it's a piece a lot about, I would say, like resilience and rebellion and like these women allowing themselves to be bad, to like make choices that are for themselves and are selfish and sort of come to terms with the consequences of that, but also like that they're not 100% the good guy you're rooting for the whole time, as like I think Black women sometimes have to present themselves, that they're like perfect, that there's nothing wrong, and we're not angry, and we're not upset about anything. And I was like, I would be certain to be angry, and I want them to be like dirty and say whatever they want. And so, anyway, I wrote this piece, and the musical element. I don't have a music background or a musical theater background, and I studied music independently. And so, creating this piece and orchestrating and all of these things felt like a literal mountain. And at the same time, I was ending a relationship with someone who was kind of like an artistic rock for me, because I felt in a lot of ways that he was like the smart music one, and I was like the ideas girl. I didn't even realize how much I was putting myself down as an artist in relation to this person. And doing this piece, I like surrounded myself. It was that idea of like, I'm surrounding myself with humans that I love and who like respect me and I respect them. And we're going to make this show. We're going to make it happen. And we put it all together and did it in July at 54 Below. It felt like a beast the entire time. I produced it, wrote it all together, and we did the piece. And I'm so proud of it because I did it. It took a village, but like I so many times just wanted to give up and be like, who are you to do this and to take up the space and to write this show? And I just kept being like, it feels like a story I want to tell. Yeah, so I'm really proud with how that all turned out, and I'm excited to continue developing it. It's a piece that I'm really passionate about, and I'm just really proud of myself. It's so hard to do this type of thing, and I'm just really proud that it all came together. So,
Yeah.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
thank
That's a
you.
good thing to be proud of.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just want
Yeah.
to I want to celebrate also that you said that with your full chest and with the biggest smile on your face, and like that's really hard to do. Like I feel like for a lot of people, I feel like for people with connection to womanhood and like relationship to womanhood, it can be especially difficult to like kind of own that stuff. So I want to say like kudos to you for that, and like that inspires me. So
Me
thank you
too.
for sharing that.
You.
Yeah.
You. That's a big thing. Like accepting compliments. I feel like I still work on it every time. My instinct is always to be like, oh, what, like,
No,
like you know, like
little
oh,
thing. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And so I've been really trying to just be like, thank you. And it does like still sometimes make me uncomfortable, but just like being more celebratory about oneself, I think is what allows these wonderful things to come to you. It's just like
Sure.
letting go of all of this stuff in there and making space for more.
Yeah.
Well, what a
So.
beautiful way to close out this interview. Thank you so much for being with us today, Maria. Could you share with our listeners where they can find you and your work on the interwebs?
Oh, sure. I'm terrible at technology, but I think this is where you can. So I'm on Instagram at Maria_Wirries. I'm on YouTube. I have various things up on there. I have a website. It's just my name, Maria Wirries. It's just my name, kind of literally anywhere. I also have things on Spotify, a couple EPs that I released over the last 4 years that I love and are fun and kind of snapshots of different moments of my life. And yeah,
Amazing.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for being with us, Maria. It's such a pleasure.
thank you. This made my whole day. I feel like ready to step into the world.
Oh my gosh, she's such a delight.
Yeah, such a great interview. Oh my gosh, I loved so much of the all the wisdom she had to share with us, and she's doing such exciting things. I want to highlight the conversation that we had about making sure that we have a diversity of people in the top decision-making levels of this industry, because I completely agree with them. That is where real change can start being made, when we have those decision makers in the top level. So that was a big takeaway for me from this interview. What about you?
I said it at the end there, but I think just like celebrating our wins. Maria shows up as a change maker and as an artist who is very joyful and excited to be where she is, and also is like fighting for change. Like, that's a beautiful thing. And it is sort of embodying this joy and celebration, and that in itself is radical and special. And so
Yeah.
that's a takeaway for me. There's often this notion that when you're fighting for things, that the word fighting feels combative.
That activism has to be from a place of anger, but activism can also be from a place of joy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also, like, there's a place for rage, there's a place for anger, and also we can do it with joy. Like, I think that all these
Yeah.
things can exist, and I think in speaking with them about their identity too, like the fluidness and the mix of everything, I think that that wisdom can also be extended through to like the way we show up in spaces. Like, there's room for, our fullness of who we are. That's what I'm
Totally.
seeing.
No, but
And
you're right.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm also taking the Swamp Witch thing with me.
Oh
Love
my God,
that.
so
Just
cool.
love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
badass. I think it's time that we uplift the people who inspire us. So who is your trailblazer of the week this week?
My trailblazer of the week this week is Kat Zimmerman, who's one of my lovely collaborators. We're writing an original musical about abortion rights called Cycles, which I love. And Kat is an incredible composer, musical theater writer. She also writes and performs opera. She's incredible. But I want to specifically uplift her today as a mom, because she has been going on a really, really tough journey this year with some health stuff with her kids and her parents, and the way that she has been showing up for everyone in her family and everyone in her life is so beautiful. And I know that it's really hard because I live that life too. And I'm really inspired by all of the grace that she's shown in going through this, and by the clear boundaries that she's been setting around, like, these are the times when I absolutely do not have creative energy to work on a project, and these are times when I really, really need to work on a project. So I really appreciate her modeling that for me, and it's just such a freaking pleasure to work with her. So my trailblazer of the week is Kat. Who's your trailblazer of the week, Haley?
My trailblazer of the week is Julia Sonia Koifman, who's one of my very close friends and collaborators. She's one of our OG Women in Theater interviewees. She's my work wife. I just love how she shows up as her full self unapologetically all the time, and that always inspires me. So she's a genius. She's hilarious. She's an
She is
icon.
hilarious.
She's a fashion icon also. Like, her outfits are always on point. So love you, Julia, if you're listening.
I love that we're loving on our collaborators today. Yay.
Well, let's continue the love fest. So, Amy, I'm going to hype you up today because I know that you came into this interview and this week has been sort of like scattered for you, but you really came in, and I just saw you light up with so much joy in this interview and like showed up and with presence of mind and energy, and I want to commend you on that. So that's the hype for me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, this is, as you know, these interviews are the joys of my day, joys of my week. Haley, I want to hype you up because we were just having that big conversation with Maria about creating spaces in which people feel safe. And I know that that is so central to everything you do as a writer and as a director. And I see that the spaces that you create in are so grounded in just being really thoughtful about what is it that we can do, what is needed to make this a space where people can show up as their full selves and bring whatever they've got to the table in a way that is helpful and that is not just moving the project forward, but also like being humans together in a space and that being okay. And I really love and respect and admire that about you and your work in all the spaces you're in. So
Oh my
you're
gosh,
you.
that was so nice. Thank you. I'm gonna practice. Instead of folding with like, I'm gonna
Oh,
try to
that whole
practice.
thing.
I'm going to practice what Maria just inspired me to do and say thank you very much for that. I do put a lot of thought and energy into making that happen, and it's very nice to be validated that way. So I appreciate you. Listeners, go be your full authentic selves. We'll see you next week. We
Yes,
love you.
we
Go
love
rock your week
you.
out. Bye.
Bye. Looking for community and accountability? Drop in and join us for our next virtual co-working session on Tuesday, March 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. bring yourself, your creative projects and ideas, and a cozy beverage, and let's get stuff done. To get the Zoom link, visit the community events page on our website or check out the link in the show notes.
Thank you for listening to the Women in Theater podcast. We're your hosts, Haley Goldenberg
And Amy Andrews. If you like what you heard, subscribe and give us a 5-star review wherever you listen.
You can also follow us on social at Women in Theater Project to make sure you never miss an episode.
The music for this show is written by talented Women in Theater community member Chloe Geller.
Thanks again for listening, everyone. See you next time.
Bye!